Hi, everybody. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. Welcome. I'm Jeffrey Morgan, and this is a talk I host twice a week to discuss my experiences on the path of soul transcendence. This offering is brought to you by the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness with the encouragement and support of my friend John Morton, who holds the mystical traveler consciousness, which is the spiritual consciousness, which does the work that we're doing here today. If you're new to the call, the format is simple. We're going to start by calling ourselves forward into the light, which is calling our awareness forward into the light of God that's already present. And then we're going to chant three Anai hues. Hue is an ancient name for God, and Anai invokes the quality of empathy and compassion. Then we're going to play a video clip from my teacher, John Roger. And then I'm going to do a reading for you, and then we can talk about whatever you would like. So I see Ron Holnick's on the call. Would you care to call us forward into light, brother?
It'll be my pleasure and my honor, I'll call it. Lord God of all creation, we call ourselves forward into the light of spirit. We call ourselves forward, and we acknowledge that the act of calling ourselves forward is an act that demonstrates our loving essence wherever we may be and whoever may be there with us. And for this time together, Lord, we give our thanks. So be it.
If you want to know if you're learning spiritual things in the physical world, there's one criteria. If you think you're learning spiritual things for the physical world, there's one criteria. And that is a change in your behavior. And that can be seen by anybody who looks at you, from the previous behavior to the new behavior. You people understand 10% level? The physical, emotional, imagination, everything you can see, touch, or taste, feel, is the 10% level. Your body, red shoes, brown shoes, socks, shorts, shirts, tie, the color, all that is your business. 90% level is invisible. And what we're doing now is bringing you into the awareness of what that is. And as that awareness gets more and more, you'll think you're getting more spiritual. All you're doing is waking up from a long winter sleep. You've been hibernating. So we've got to pay attention to what the environment is speaking to us. It will reflect back our inner environment, but it won't be the same. Because in there is a very pure divine essence. The magic there is not sleight of hand. It's what we all say is magic. It is that moment when the Spirit of God and the Holy Spirit comes forth inside of you. And at that moment, you know that everything is absolutely perfect.
All right. I'm going to read from one of my favorite scenes in The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare. I mean, if Shakespeare existed, we'll see. This is on mercy, Act 4, Scene 1. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings, but mercy is above this sceptered sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power doth then show likest God's, when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, though justice be the plea, consider this, that in the course of justice none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer doth teach us all to render the deeds of mercy. I have spoke thus much to mitigate the justice of thy plea, which if thou follow, the strict court of Venice must needs give sentence against the merchant there. So there you go, a little bit of Shakespeare. As a reminder, if anybody's new to the teachings of Soul Transcendence or to MSIA, I will push you to the front of the line, so feel free to raise your hand and identify yourself as new. And I'm always grateful to talk to folks who are newer as a priority, and to everyone else if you want to share. So I saw, Cynthia, you're new to the talks or to MSIA or all of this stuff.
This is my first time sharing here. I've been listening for a while.
Oh, well, great. Well, let's go with you first.
Okay. Um, JR says, and I know everything is perfect. So, however, I would like some understanding. I have a life pattern that's now in a new scary place. I have a tendency to lose my job. And most of the time, I find another one. I lost my job a year ago in January. I'm a counselor and
What kind of counselor?
mental health, technically a psychologist, but a master level, not a PhD.
Okay.
So because of circumstances, I was not allowed to receive unemployment benefits. And because of my degree, I'm the only master level counselor that actually needs supervision. I don't know why, but so I have very hard time finding a job. So I used up all my credit cards to live. Um, I do have a job now, but it's contractual. And I was hoping I could get at least, 20, 25 clients, and that hasn't quite happened yet.
Mhm.
So basically, I don't have enough money to pay my bills. I have a very dear friend who gave me just donated money to me. I've been using it only for whatever my little income didn't cover. So I'm now down in my checking book to $700. Um, this is a scary place to not actually buy food. Um, and more than that, it's like, why did I choose this karmic pattern? What is it I'm supposed to be learning? I know karma repeats until we, quote, understand it or get it. And I've been in MSA a long time. I've been doing lots of clearing over the years, especially this year, in all different ways. And well, what do I need to do to complete this? I am going to a- apply for claiming, what do you call it? Um, I can't think right now. My mind just went blank. But anyways, let's stick with the first question. Besides, what am I going to do? It's like, can you tell me why this is so perfect for me?
It's perfect for you because it's what's happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I could give you a complicated answer with a lot of different karmic twists and turns, but I think we can all assume, how do I know that it's perfect? Because it's what's happening.
How can I
And
complete
and then
this?
and then you go, well, you're making an assumption that your karma is defective, that if you were doing it better, that somehow things would turn out more the way that you want. I'm not actually, I mean, I totally get it. I just haven't had that experience with my karma. I think one of the toughest lessons that I learn is I may be following that spiritual inner guidance and I may be completely on track with my curriculum and I still don't get the result that I want. I know that, well, let's just say certain karmas can be moderated through learning,
Mm-hmm.
especially internal karmas. You can change patterns of behavior, you can change belief systems, you can do a lot of stuff in your consciousness. There are some karmic patterns that are fixed. In the Hindu side of things, they call them like pralabdha karma, destiny karma, or dura karma, if it's having the negative connotation. I've heard it described as fixed karmas. So there are certain things that are just characteristics of how you're experiencing on the planet. So the lesson may not be, how do I fix this defective karma that I don't like? The lesson may be, how do I get to a place in my consciousness where it just doesn't matter if it ever shifts because I'm free and I don't have any againstness towards that. And it's like a kind of a surrendering. I think for me, it goes back to like, how do you define grace in your consciousness? Now, do you define grace as I always get what I want, or do you define grace as I get what I ultimately want, which is an experience of closeness and intimacy with my God essence, regardless of what goes on in the world? The things that we like and the things that are comfortable in the world are always fickle. We always lose them. And what was true a year ago or even a week ago may not be true today. And sometimes it really isn't necessarily that you need to learn a lesson to undo the karma. It might be that the karma itself is a lesson called, oh, wow, I acquired some debt in my past life that alienated these particular people. So this is the result of that. I get to balance this out by losing my job a bunch. And then you go, well, okay, I'm aware that I had a past life where I was just firing people all the time in a very heartless way. So I learned a valuable lesson. I learned that there's another side to getting fired and it's not fun, or losing your job and it's not fun. So you see, I think you have it wired that there's something fundamentally wrong with your karma, and that if you learned a certain lesson, you wouldn't have to walk through it the way that you're walking through it. But it may be that you're doing excellently. It may be that your job is to get fired as many times as you can in the next 5 years, and everything will be fine, but you really got to complete that karma, whatever that is. This is not like a curse. It's not like me saying, oh, that's definitely going to happen. I'm just saying you're assuming that you're doing your karma badly, when in fact, you're probably doing a great job. Now, if there's a karmic pattern where your behavior is promoting that, you can ask, did I do something to create, promote, or allow that to happen? And you can check. But ultimately, if you've evaluated your behavior, being in all these trainings and all these practices, and if you've analyzed it, and if you've worked your butt off, and if you've changed your mentality and changed the way you speak and taken on a system and been super responsible, and still you lost your job, you kind of have to ask yourself that question of like, well, maybe this is what's on my menu. Maybe this is what's there for me. And that's the other thing is with something like losing your job, it is so destabilizing that on a basic self level, it's very difficult for people to say, this is for me. This is to assist me in learning something very important inside of me. It's very, very difficult to go, this is God's gift to me when it's something as uncomfortable and destabilizing as losing your job. But in most cases, the things that were most difficult for me, I look back and I go, wow, that really was for me because I got to learn a lot about patterns that don't necessarily work. So it is a tricky one. And it's not as if I can wave a magic wand for you and somehow shift the dynamic of the karma, except to say, for me, the way out is in. And if I start to relate and reference from a self that is transcendent of the karma, there may be a point at which who you are as a base level reference point, it's like the subject object relationship of the karma just doesn't play out because you're no longer that subject. You're no longer that personality ego that always gets hooked into that same pattern because that part of you has passed into spirit. So that's a way that can shift. But again, it's almost better to just have a sense of humor about it if it's not shifting. What doesn't work is to judge it and assume that you're somehow defective or failing or whatever. If you and your integrity say, well, I did my best, I was honest, I followed the spirit as well as I could perceive it, and you acknowledge yourself and you say, I love you, thank you for doing that. It's difficult to do that, and we did it. You see, if we place the metric outside of ourselves, we always lose. Now, there are people who have karma that's more around material success. So they have more evidence to say, oh, I'm winning at life. But some of those people that I know are some of the most insecure people I've ever met. And they've got all this success in the world and they still are insecure. So a stable job isn't how to solve for that inside of you. And we humans have this terrible habit of trying to solve internal problems externally. And the result is we always end up feeling kind of trashed at the end of that. But it's like if you could just internalize, hey, I'm doing a great job with this getting fired karma. I'm really good at it. It's a
Well,
radical perspective.
I've been terminated once, but circumstances,
Sure. Okay.
I mean, this has
I'm sorry.
been,
I'm really good at losing jobs.
I'm really good at losing jobs. Yes, yes, I am.
If I could
Companies,
be as good at losing judgments as I was as good at losing jobs.
well, I'm working on the judgment. fear I have is I'm in a new situation where I will be claiming bankruptcy, but in that process, I'm going to need to sell the house
Mhm.
to pay the debts, and I don't know if I'm going to have money left over, and I still don't have money for food.
Hmm.
So going inside is what I've been really working on and planning and doing, but there's also this
Yeah, I think, well,
like
there's a
I gotta
practical
take
level.
action, you know?
Yeah, no, no, there's a practical level called take care of your body for sure. So if you
Yeah.
need to ask for financial assistance, or if you need to go to a food bank, or you need to do whatever you need to do, you got to do that. But you don't have to do that feeling defeated. You can do that as like, okay, God, this is the next step. This is my next growth opportunity. I know it's a radical perspective and it's a different perspective, but I'm just suggesting to you that the freedom is in the transcendence of the situation. It's regardless. If you go to a food bank, then you're bringing the light to the food bank. If you ask for financial assistance, it's because part of your curriculum is to learn how to receive.
Mm.
You know, we get into this pride stuff, and that blocks us from taking that action. And maybe selling the house is actually going to be freeing for you. Maybe bankruptcy. I know somebody who went through bankruptcy and they used to be constantly afraid of the future and of not having enough money in the future. They did a bankruptcy, and now they have less worry than I've ever seen in my whole, 10 years later, it's like they got their credit back, everything was fine. But what was crazy about that whole situation is it unlocked this whole part of their consciousness where they no longer were freaking out and terrorizing themselves about money. And I'm like, wait, that makes no sense. You actually you filed for bankruptcy. Isn't that like the sum of all your fears? And it's like, yeah, it was, but then it turned out just fine. So then you go, it's not easy. None of this is easy. And my heart goes out to you and I'm with you. But you asked about understanding the perfection of it. The most positive action you can take at this moment is accepting it and understanding that there's no failure, there's no mistake, there's no nothing, there's no mistakes. That this is the process by which you're going to encounter and experience your next level of freedom. And having that attitude and say, okay, well, if I'm going to ask for food stamps, then it's because the light is needed at the place that gives the food stamps.
Thank you. The big concern I have is not claiming bankruptcy. It's when it's over and I don't have enough income, if I have the same level of income, which is not enough, how am I going to get housing?
God is the source of your well being. And God was the source of your well being when you were working, and God is the source of your well being now. This is what you need to walk through, but it doesn't mean that you're walking through it alone. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that there's not a perfect design for your freedom. I understand the basic self is your consciousness is going to come at you saying, "Oh my God, how are we going to eat?" And it is tough to think about anything other than that. Where am I going to sleep? How am I going to eat? So you have to address those issues immediately just to even restore high level conscious functions. You won't even be able to think at a high level if you
No,
don't eat and you don't have a place to sleep. So, yeah, that's immediate, but there's still an opportunity to go inside and say, okay, God, looks like we're going to have to sell the house. Please show me the next step. I think it's extraordinary. if someone like you can walk through something like you're walking through in complete partnership with God, that can be an absolute game changer. I mean, for all you know, all of your life experiences were leading up to this important moment. I mean, this is like a big test, right? This is the reason people lose their faith and lose their connection. People use this as an excuse, but if you strengthen it and say, well, okay, God, I'm willing to walk through bankruptcy and all this other stuff, but you're going to need to guide me and step up and sustain me every step of the way here. It's going to be a trust walk for sure.
Yes.
The reason I'm sharing the way that I'm sharing with you is like, look back at your karma, look back at your behavior. Have you done anything to merit what you've received in terms of, terminations, layoffs, all that kind of stuff? Did you, if you look back and you're honest with yourself, creating, promoting, allowing, whatever, you probably can't find a whole lot of evidence of you doing stuff that's off track or not giving your best or not putting your whole love into what you're doing. And I saw a karma that it's just like, it's just like you can see it on people where it's just like something's unlocked and it's got to express itself fully. And then you can walk out the other side. It's like I had a very close friend of mine who had a rare form of cancer, and everybody else was trying to tell her that it's because she was too serious. And it was like, this other causes. And what I saw was a clearing of a very old karma. And on the other end of it was lightness of being, freedom, So for me, it's always important to recognize that working with a traveler means that every second of your life is orchestrated for your liberation. So this is like your advanced training. When things like this happen, it's like that seminar by John Roger, Nuclear Radiation from Ground Zero. It wipes you out, it wipes everything out, but what's left over is a you that is stronger and more essentially you than you've ever experienced. It's a strengthener. And I just think that it's important for you to be gentle and loving with yourself and know that you didn't do anything wrong. You were walking through your karma.
I do think I did something wrong, and I don't know what it is.
No. Okay. You made some boo-boos in a past life that you're now eating right now, so you have some residual guilt. That's what's going on right now. Now, I'm not going to give you the entire details of it because we have 245 people who would they would break out the popcorn, I'm sure, because it was a doozy. But I want to tell you
Yeah, I don't want to know that.
exactly, exactly. You don't need to know that. We've all done it. I mean,
Okay.
it's like having this mentality of like, okay, I made a mess in my room. Now I get to clean it up.
Okay.
Mom still loves me. Dad still loves me. But I made a mess in my room and now I get to clean it up.
All
You
right.
see, you're not being punished. You're being given the opportunity to clean up and go home. You're handling the 10% level, and this is the 10% level. You do the best you can with what you know. The world is changing in such a rapid way, and there are so many people who will take the bait of condemning themselves and thinking that they did something wrong, when in reality they did nothing wrong. There is a karma of the planet. There are tons of people who are likely going to be losing their jobs in the next couple of years as a result of changes in technology, changes in the global economy, changes in international trade, changes in globalization. We live in proverbial interesting times. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yes, I do.
So there's going to be a lot of reasons why people are going to want to blame themselves thinking that somehow they failed because they're not fitting the image they were sold when they were young and going through school and being told about the economy and all that. It's nobody's fault. It's like we could try to blame the weather on somebody, but at the end of the day, if there's a blizzard outside, get somewhere warm, do what you need to do, take care of yourself. It's not like you did nothing wrong. I mean, just say it. I did nothing wrong.
I,
I followed God every step of the way.
I follow God every step of the way.
And if God is taking me through bankruptcy,
If God is taking me through bankruptcy,
I will make it the most wonderful bankruptcy that has ever happened in the history of the world.
it will be the best bankruptcy and results ever.
And guess what? Bankruptcy is a funny thing. Like it wipes out debts. It's kind of a blessing, right? They
Oh,
just
I like that
they
part.
just disappear.
Yeah, with the house.
I know it. I know it. And we put a lot of, and the house is something that we also invest a lot of our identity in, just like our job. All the sacred cows are getting challenged recently in the world. All of
Yeah, yeah, that's really, really true.
it's not a you thing, it's a humanity thing right now. And it's happening in every country on the planet.
Yeah, right. That's true.
All you need to do is put one foot in front of the other and love as much as possible. And start first with loving yourself.
You helped a lot. I really didn't believe I was judging myself, but I really did feel I must be doing something really wrong. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Look, at the end of the day, we do the things we can do. You know, it's like in my case, I write the ideal scene, I clear the consciousness, I do my SCs, I do the things I know to do that are within my purview. But I recognize that a lot of the things that I experience karmically are there as part of a very carefully designed set of experiences that will assist me in freeing myself of this world. When in doubt, when in confusion, you can always start with thank you, Lord. I mean, it's a weird one. I get the shitty email or I get the letter in the mail that, you know, the thing that shakes you and hits you right in the stomach. It's a radical thing to say, thank you, Lord. Thank God for this. I know that when I get through this one, I'll be even more free. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Yep, here's what I came for. So I'm
And some of the
going to do
times,
it.
and sometimes the things that we walk through are answers to prayers, the shittiest things. I mean, one time I was in this whole thing where I broke some lady's leg in jujitsu and I hated myself for months. And I realized that it all came from me seeding and praying to be okay with making mistakes because I was this person who's like, I'd rather bury the body than make a mistake. So that was that was really like crippling to me. But after I went through that whole experience of the leg breaking, the whole thing, a couple months later, I stopped and I looked at myself and I went, oh my God, I can make mistakes now. And it wasn't crippling anymore. So please understand everything that you're experiencing may in fact be an answer to a prayer. It's just you had to be willing to pay the price to get the answer to the prayer.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else who hasn't shared with me before or hasn't is new to MSI or anything? No. There you go. All right, we'll go with Mark.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi.
So first of all, thank you for who you are and what you do and the people you help. And I was so impressed with the meeting on Sunday, the last one, the way you spoke, and I'm just really proud. I'm really proud of you and some of the other younger people that have taken over. And I don't know if they've taken over, but you add so much, and it's really beautiful. It's really nice. So I have two questions, and I don't think I'll take a lot of time. One is, so the work we've been doing for like 27 years now, with adults, and parents, and schools, and that whole thing. So I've written books that we use in the class, and we've done videos and all that. My question is, those were done. I'm trying to go to another level with my programs. Those were done like 20 years ago, easily. The books written and all that stuff. What happened is and I'm a different person now. Um, hopefully better, and I feel better, and I like myself more, and whatever. But I think I've grown a lot. And when I read books, a lot of times, especially spiritual books, I get the energy of the people that wrote those books. And what happens in my case, let's say the books and the videos that were done 20 years ago, is it the energy of 20 years ago, or is it the energy of who I am now? What comes through that work?
Yeah, my experience is it's about the consciousness you bring to the seminar. Um, I've listened to categorized as public seminars that are supposedly entry level or okay for public consumption of John Roger. And I'll listen to that seminar and go, that's one of the deepest seminars I've ever heard. It's like people talk about, hey, if you really got what was in the first discourse, you would need to read the other 143 of them, right? If you understood fully embodied that first booklet. So I think to a large extent, it's really about what we bring and the consciousness we bring to the work and our availability to different facets of it. I get a different thing every time I read that discourse. And there are people on this call who continue. And for those of you who are new to MSA or the work that we do, just this is the public service announcement. Discourses are a booklet subscription that we have that's amazing, that kind of plugs people into that field of consciousness that we work with. And yeah, my experience is each time I read the discourses, which I've gone through years where I've cycled through all 144 of them in the year, I get something new every time. And I get something new every time because a lot of the information, a lot of the consciousness, a lot of the transmission occurs on a different level anyway. So I found that like I'll be sure that something's written in a discourse and I'll look back at the discourse and I won't be able to find the words, but I'm pretty sure it's in there. And you kind of go, well, maybe this whole thing, this whole outer experience of books and tapes and all the other stuff is just a proxy for a very active inner relationship with the inner master. And I think for me, that's really what we're talking about, as much as we can relate to things mentally or relate to things conceptually, as much as we can think about our own spiritual progress as if there's a beginning, middle, and end where we started somewhere and we get to another. The further I dive into that consciousness, the more I recognize that we're all already there, that we're all already present with that. And it's just a question of bringing our attention and our awareness there. The books and the media are really good reflectors. They're really good mirrors. They bring us back into that, where they might be at the frequency of some part of us that we don't know yet. And they're charged with that energy that's, it's like with anything else. When we first learn about something, it's always gross movements. I mean, I remember, I guess I'll be talking about jujitsu a lot tonight, but when I was first learning jujitsu, it was like the gross movements of the kata, getting them right, generally memorizing them. By the time I was a black belt, it was about whether my wrist position was a millimeter off. The kata never changed. The curriculum never changed. But as we start to build foundation, we can start to explore deeper and deeper levels. If you think about it, there's just a whole lot of context needed to fully understand and appreciate a lot of the teachings that we receive. And then energetically, the equivalent of that is, I think there's a lot that I wasn't able to experience until recently, not because the consciousness wasn't fully present, but just because my own availability to that level or my own foundation in holding energy wasn't there.
So, so and I don't want to take too much time, but if the question is, let's say if personally, let's say you started doing these seminars, let's say 5 years ago. Okay, I know it hasn't been that long, but let's say right in the first seminar, and now here you are now. You're different now. I assume. I mean, your vibration. There's more. You're. I don't know how to
Well,
describe it.
I don't know that time is the metric. I think it's also about who's in the room, and it's also about what they're available to hear. I think the traveler consciousness has been teaching throughout history, and to a large extent, it's dependent on the availability and level of consciousness of the people in the room.
Yes.
And I've heard John Roger even say, like, he's essentially, he needed to raise the level of the room or needed to raise the frequency of the room in order to do the work he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it's also about who's in the room.
Yeah.
Some of those conference workshops where you have a room full of 800 soul initiates, that's a different thing for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's because, I mean, if you look at it, when John Roger first started doing his thing in the late 60s, people wanted a lot of demonstration of psychic phenomena. I mean, they wanted to see auras, they wanted to be able to read minds, they wanted to do stuff. So he would offer them experiences so that they could have some of those experiences of something beyond the physical. And you go, well, is that really soul transcendence? Well, it's the first step to soul transcendence in a sense, because the first thing that humans have the opportunity to explore is there must be something more than this physical body. There must be something more than the drama that I pull myself into in my life and in my mind. And then they start to ask deeper questions like, who am I really? Why am I really here? And it starts to get deeper and deeper in that focus. And then all of a sudden, at least they've established there's something more than the physical. So then maybe psychic phenomena aren't necessary. And now they're starting to work with their inner reality and realize they really feel a lot of entanglement with their judgments and their traumas and the negativity going on. So it becomes a very good moment to introduce the Christ consciousness, forgiveness, and starting to release that. But ultimately, it's like someone like John Roger, who was an anchor point for such an incredible, multifaceted consciousness of the mystical traveler, and then also the preceptor. It wasn't really, I don't think it was ever a question of him not having information or grow. It was a question of, were we ready? Could we receive of it? Because
Interesting.
there was always this awareness that John Roger would never violate our consciousness. So if we're not prepared or ready to receive of it, it wasn't going to come through.
Yeah.
And I think he made the comment, we needed to raise our consciousness just to be ready for the people coming in later. Because later generations aren't going to come in with the same baggage that the boomers came in with.
Mm.
It's just a different framework. It's not worse, it's not better. And you could say, well, I've been doing this for whatever, 40 years or 50 years. That may be so, but it may be that you needed additional time directly with JR and people were coming in late and never met him. It's because they didn't really need to. They already worked with a traveler in a past life or they already had that experience. So I would be careful just with the concept of hierarchies or how we try to put things in boxes in our mind, because my experience is the consciousness that we deal with is eternal. And that consciousness that comes through John Morton, that consciousness that came through John Roger, that consciousness that comes through all of our consciousnesses as the inner master, it's as infinite now as it ever was, and it was as infinite in 1968 as it is now. And it always brings us back to that question: are we open? Are we willing? Are we courageous enough to see the face of God and find that it looks a lot like our own face? Are we willing to be the Savior in our own consciousness? Are we willing to be the Christ?
Mm.
There's not easy questions. And I just look at it as John Roger and all travelers are so generous. I think we all have this fundamental fear of somehow being left behind by spirit. And somehow we always get exactly the teaching that we're ready for and available to at the level we can receive it. So it's like if you want to have more of an experience of spirit, look at your level of willingness and capacity to receive of it.
Great. The second question, and I'll make it quick. What's the difference between, you talk about, the third eye, the higher third eye, and this has to do with meditation, and the Tisra JR talks about that, and then the crown chakra. What's the difference? Yeah, what's the difference? What's the difference between up here, the crown chakra, and the Tisra? What's the difference?
The Tisra,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, the Tisra is a point at which, kind of close to the pineal gland. It's a point at the center of the head. The yogis call it like the seat of the soul, but it's a point at which the um, the sound current would be connected and the soul would be connected in, according to those teachings. The crown chakra as a chakra is part of the system of chakras within the body. That's why it's not the whole third eye center, because you could say there's parts of the third eye center that aren't necessarily associated so heavily with soul transcendence. The mental level, to a large extent, if you could say geographically, because we also use a Huna principle of like the three selves, right? You could say that the basic self are up to, is up to the eyes in a sense. And when people fall asleep, they tend to look down towards their nose rather than up to their third eye center. Whereas when they do spiritual exercises, they look up and into the third eye center and the Tisra. But that point, but all those levels below the eyes are kind of that subconscious basic self domain. You could say the conscious self is more level with the eyes, like you're participating in the world. And then the high self is above the head, sort of more associated with that crown potentially. But I think it's important to understand that the chakra system of the body is designed to support experience, internal and external. So the inner reality and the exterior reality, but not necessarily the process of liberation that comes through the sound current, which connects in at the Tisra. So it's kind of like when you say what's the difference, you could say in a lot of ways it's just function. The psychic center, because the chakras of the body are associated with the functionality of this experiential vehicle called the body, whereas the Tisra is associated with the experience and engagement with the sound current and with the inner master. So we have the 10th door built into our structure to allow it, but it's a doorway into a different framework in that sense.
Mm.
And the yogis actually say beyond the 10th door and going back upward, they identify 18 chakras moving out. So it's the set of chakras that we're taught in the body and in the Patanjali Sutra and all of that kind of stuff. That's more focused on how your experiential vehicle works and how you engage with different subtle bodies that are, again, still part of the 10% level, still part of and connected to the experiential vehicle that we have here. Whereas the Tisratil is very much associated with our connection to the sound current.
Mm. Wow.
And
So like when I'm listening to you, I feel that pulsing, up here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, up here. Up
it
here.
does,
So
it
that's
starts at the center and moves up. So you'll tend to feel something here when you're going out. And then oftentimes people, you know, I've noticed that people who are maybe on discourse and they're chanting Q, oftentimes they can feel some pressure. And it's almost like their consciousness is acclimating to that sound current or that activation. It's like a reactivation. And sometimes there's some karma getting worked out and cleared in the first 2 years before people receive the causal initiation. And so having pressure is quite common in that way. But yeah, when the energy comes through, it'll sometimes feel like it emanates from the Tisra, like the center point, but then it feels like it's almost like blowing out the back of your head or blowing out above your head and back. And sometimes it can even feel like falling in a sense. But people are going to experience it differently. And I think it's just for me being very clear about the focus and intention of where I engage in the body system. Like if I'm choosing to engage with the heart center, I'm engaging usually with service out in the world. Action tends to emanate from the heart center. I don't know if you noticed that. So action in the world tends to emanate through the heart center, and action of the spirit when we're actually engaging with the soul tends to emanate from the third eye center. And I think it's no accident that in the work that we do, we tend to work with those two places. We don't, I'm not aware of a ton, I mean, maybe occasional healing stuff and meditation. I'm not aware of other chakras being worked with so much. In fact, we don't talk about raising kundalinis or messing with chakras. We don't mess with that. We do the heart center in the consciousness of service and unconditional loving, usually the Christ action in the world, and the third eye center associated more with the mystical traveler consciousness and soul transcendence and experiencing soul consciousness directly. And that tends to be the focus. And I love there's like the heartfelt meditation and there's like a bunch that are focused on the heart center. I think that's beautiful. I think that's absolutely beautiful. And there's a way in which we can see, the thing is the crown chakra or the crown, I worked with people where it can be messed with. And
can be.
yeah, it can be messed with. It's not like this transcendent thing. Any chakra of the body can be messed with in some capacity. So you can clear that. It's things that you work with. Whereas the Tisratil, I mean, when you're in the sound current, if you don't mess up the vehicle for that through drugs or blowing yourself out in some capacity or just turning away from it, that just as the soul, in a sense, it's never tarnished. That connection, you may put a bunch of stuff in the way of it. You may distract yourself from it. And Lord knows, Kal Niranjan, the Lord of time and death and this lower reality, the one who structures all this thing, the whole karma thing, is going to put mind and emotion in the way of your awareness of the sound current.
Yeah.
And that's like its job. and it can pull all kind of funny stuff from different karmas, different places, just to get you to not focus on the sound current. But the sound current itself isn't touched in that process. The sound current is the sound current, and it's an emanation from spirit. It's not something that gets messed with by your distraction level. But anything that's happening in the psychic centers can be messed with. I mean, that's just, Jared would say, if you have a body, you can fall, period. It's, psychic centers are part of the body.
So, all right. So I'm looking at the time, and I know I feel a little guilty. I've taken a lot of time, and
Does
but you're
feeling
not.
guilty, does feeling guilty usually work for you?
I usually don't feel guilty, so
Oh,
I
okay.
usually don't. I rarely
So
feel.
maybe this is a good step for you.
Okay, just a quickie, man. It's coming. Well, you mentioned once, and
Yeah.
this won't relate to everybody, but you mentioned that when you were in England, you said you studied with the Hasidic Jews or the religious Jews because
No, I studied with kind of the Jewish community. The guy would call himself kind of a mix, like he didn't like to affiliate, but he certainly loved the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and things like that, but he was also kind of orthodox. It was kind of in between. The thing
so
about it, he was somewhere in between the yeah, it was somewhere in between that those flavors. But yeah, anyway, what was your question about that?
well, you mentioned now another question because I go to Chabad a couple of times a week. I put on tefillin with them.
That's fun.
I really like the rabbis. It's not my this is
Yeah,
my
they're nice people. Yeah.
yeah, they're great. They pick great people. These are Chabad people,
Yeah, of
Shneur
course.
system. So, and I'm not going to get into the differences or whatever, but when you talk about the heart, well, let me go. You brought up another thing that I wanted. Do you think like the Baal Shem Tov? I always felt like these guys, the guys who really taught, who were the real deals. They were transcending. They weren't sitting there just doing all the laws. They were going to a whole different place. Is that
Well,
true?
well, I didn't personally know the Baal Shem Tov, but his consciousness when I tune into it is absolutely transcendent for sure. I think I think the kind of I think we could look at Chabad and Hasidim Hasidus in the concept in the context of Judaism has this interesting habit of saying, "Who do you think you are?" Like they said to Jesus, "Who do you think you are?" It's always, "Who do you think you are?" So basically, if you're the Baal Shem Tov and you realize that all these Orthodox people were doing it wrong up until now, you really are supposed to have a very direct relationship with God. And not only that, you're supposed to find the divine spark and bring it out in everything through blessings and through actions. And not only that, you're supposed to experience direct communion with God using the tefillin. And not only that, so what do you have to do? If you're saying something that radical, you have to tick every possible box of every possible mitzvot. So nobody can give you a hard time and go, oh no, don't listen to him. He doesn't even follow the mitzvot. So I look at it as people like the Baal Shem Tov, any Mahatma, any high teacher, any consciousness that comes into a context that's highly structured and highly strict, sometimes they will have to play ball in order to do what they're really doing. I mean, by the way, great teachers. Let's look at other great teachers who were clearly in a structured context and clearly had a higher teaching that they were bringing in.
Right.
Meister Eckhart, Ibn Arabi. There's plenty of Muslim teachers, Al-Ghazali. Like you just go on and on and on. There was, I mean, goodness, like Thomas Aquinas,
How about
like
Jesus? How about Jesus?
well, of course, but he was a bit more radical in the context. I'm talking about people who tick the boxes. I mean, Saint Teresa of Avila spent an entire intro section talking about how terrible she was as a woman, just so that people wouldn't disregard all the amazing stuff she was saying. Like you got to like it's pragmatism. The truth is like there were people who just started something new. Like if you look at Gautama Buddha would be somebody who like he was in the like specific like movement of time where people were dissatisfied. Like the founder of Jainism was the same. It's like there's a context culturally, but he was doing a 0 to 1. He was doing something net new. So the issue never becomes what he's teaching. He's he's somebody who's starting something totally new. Therefore, he kind of set the rules for the Sangha and everything else. But then his followers started confusing themselves and getting so entangled with all the philosophical niceties and incorporation of local deities, and they deviated so far from his original teachings that they had several reforms throughout history. But when you talk about someone like, let's say, the Baal Shem Tov, you could also say Moses Maimonides, you could, Ramban. So, like, from my perspective, when somebody comes in with a consciousness like, let's say, like a John Roger or somebody else, like anybody with like an ascended consciousness, like somebody who's, but they are born into a context that is highly religious, and their safety and stability in society is contingent upon their kissing that ring.
Hmm.
My experience is they do an amazing job at that. I'm just astounded. Do you know someone like Meister Eckhart? There was a Benedictine, well, actually, there was a Franciscan Inquisition, and he was called before the court, and they could not find a thing on him. Like, they tried. The worst and he never was convicted. The worst they could get him on was, you know, saying things that could have been interpreted in a way that was heretical. But the actual theology behind everything he said, as outrageous as it was, if I read it to you, you would think I was reading you the Upanishads, right? His stuff, and you go, oh my God, this is crazy. He could have started a New Age movement today, and he's a Catholic monk, right? He's a Dominican. And so you you look at that, and the theology is flawless. He was such a genius that somehow, using accepted theology in the Catholic Church, he said the most radical stuff I've ever read. And I think someone like the Baal Shem Tov is very similar. Like, he overdid it. He said, "Hey, no, I'm gonna out commandment the Orthodox so that I can get away with saying whatever I want." And he said some really out there stuff that was theologically sound. Moses Maimonides was the same in the context of Judaism. He said stuff that was really profound. But when you would unpack it, there's almost no rabbi on the planet who would go, "Oh yeah, like Moses Maimonides is totally wrong." There's
Yeah.
no, not at all. Like, most people agree that he was, even in the context of Judaism, they're like, everything he said is right.
It was his birthday actually, or something yesterday. It was wrong. I just want to say, you're so cute, man. Like, you're like, how do you know that? I mean, like, like you're a kid, man. I mean, how many books have you? How do you know this? I mean, it's like, it's beautiful. It's really great. You're a really good guy. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. It was nice reminiscing about my Jewishness.
Hey,
So okay. So anyway, while we're on that topic, and now allow me to make a very awkward and rapid transition to Insight Seminars, a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful program and organization, also founded by John Roger. There is an Insight One coming up in LA starting Thursday evening, and there is a discounted rate of 200 of $100. The normal price is $200, but it's $100 if you use the discount code Jeffrey100. So you can use my name as a code Jeffrey100. Such a deal, 50% off. Information posted in the chat. Please support the work. And if you haven't done Insight, or if you haven't done Insight in a long time, do yourself a favor. Please join Insight. So join that Insight One. Give yourself the gift of a truly transformational experience. That's all I have for you tonight. God bless you. I love you. Peace be still. The blessings already are. And see you next time.